My mom taught me to sell at a spaza shop. She ran a hair salon. I pretty much learned entrepreneurship from my moms.
Ngumtu ngabantu. That on your own, you can't really do it. You need the support of those around you.
You will have a network of people, a network of communities, and a society that will make sure that you count.
It seems we lost Louise. Vanessa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Paul.
Right, so it seems that we've lost our program director. It was due to Wi-Fi or electricity or something. And we are live as we speak, so I'm not sure what we'll... Well, I suppose we could continue because we've got millions and millions across the world tuning into, hanging onto our every word, wanting to hear about unemployment. So here comes Patrick. And so I'm not the program director, but I do believe that mic silence in the media world is a no-no. So I don't think we should proceed with a mic silence. Let's start. Good evening, Comrade Vanessa, and good evening, Comrade Patrick. Can I just ask to introduce yourself to the people, the thousands and millions in attendance online, Comrade Vanessa?
Good evening. Good evening, Paul, and good evening to everyone who's viewing and listening in tonight. I'm Vanessa Pillay. I work for the organization WeGo, which stands for Women in Informal Employment, Globalizing and Organizing. WeGo is a global network, a policy advocacy and action network, working with membership-based organizations of workers in the informal economy, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. Comrade Patrick Maslango, if you can just introduce yourself. We have got our director of show back online. Good evening, Comrade Louise.
Good evening, Comrade Paul. Good evening, Vanessa, and good evening, Patrick.
Good
Apologies
evening.
for that. We've just had a little bit of a power surge in our area, and everything just died for a second or two. So humblest apologies, but allow me to just do the formalities. Welcome to Saita Straight Talk. It's our pleasure every Tuesday and Thursday evening to focus on subjects that are pertinent in the informal sector. We talk about the hard stuff, we talk about the good stuff, we celebrate each other, and we talk about the stuff that we can do better. I see, Vanessa, you've introduced yourself already. Thank you very much and welcome. Comrade Paul, also welcome to you. And then we have from KwaZulu-Natal, Patrick Mhlangu. Thank you so much for making yourself available to be on the panel this evening. Patrick, are you there?
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to meet you too.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, I'm here. Can you see me?
I can see you. I can see you. Thank you so much for being available. So last week we saw Stats SA present the latest unemployment figures. And one should probably say, but what does the unemployment figures have to do with the informal sector? When in fact, I think it has quite a lot to do with the informal sector, because that means, first of all, the information that we get from Stats SA only counts people. Sorry, Patrick. Okay, just to go back, the statistics that is given to us by Stats SA does not include informal trading. In fact, they only count.
I got a problem with network.
Okay, that's okay. You can just mute yourself, and when your network is up and running, we can chat. So what I was saying is that the informal sector is not counted as part of the unemployment figures that Stats SA provides to all of us. They actually only count people who are given a payslip. And that means that there are a whole lot of people that is not accounted for. As part of the introduction to tonight's unemployment discussion, it's not just about the heartache, because I firmly believe that there is a place for the informal sector in terms of turning the tide of the economy of South Africa. Vanessa, I wanna direct the first question to you. You are part of an organization, a global organization, and you know, first of all, just coming out of Women's Month, the role that women play in the informal sector. And I just want you to give us a brief overview of what the reality is in terms of how broad the sector is and how unemployment affects an already mass sector. What does that mean for all of us?
Thank you, Louise. In 2018, the International Labour Organization did a global survey in terms of informality, and we speak not of the informal sector, but we speak of the informal economy, which includes both entrepreneurs as well as workers who are informally employed. So in 2018, the ILO statistics found that 61% or 2 billion people in the world who are employed are informally employed. So you can hear that is a significant number.
Just say that again, Vanessa. Just say that again.
61% or 2 billion people in the world in 2018 who are employed are informally employed. So we have...
And that's before COVID.
That's before COVID. I don't know what the recent figures are, and you can just imagine how much worse that is. So what that seeks to illustrate is the level of employment that the informal economy creates. The level of livelihood that it sustains. How many people are dependent on their livelihood within informal arrangements? And often within policy spaces, often the informal is considered to be the evasive economy, or those who are evading taxes, or a dark economy, which is actually, as all of us sitting on this panel, and probably those of us who are watching, know that that's not true. There's disparity in terms of gender breakdown in these figures. So women, you will find, are most likely to be at the bottom end. So even within the informal economy, men are most likely to be in those sectors within the informal economy as employers rather than as workers. So women would be the ones who are most vulnerable amongst a wider category of vulnerable workers, in that they they are unlikely to be employers within the informal economy, and they are most likely to be family workers, so contributing workers. So the backyard mechanic that you described might have a female family member contributing to that activity, but not necessarily having much say within it. So yeah, I think I'll stop there by way of introduction. Or maybe one more thing to add. So if you consider the size of the global informal economy, and if you look at regulation, if you look at policy, in my view, that what we have in the policy space is talking to the minority of the global workforce as opposed to the majority of the global workforce, because informal employment tends to be regulated in a punitive way. We know it
Yes.
all too well in South Africa, and that's a global phenomenon with evictions, bylaws that exclude and criminalize poverty. So that's the reality mainly for workers in the informal economy. So what we try and do through our work as we go is to make visible the size of the informal economy as well as the significance, because all of these people, 2 billion people, are contributing. Yes. They're making the wheels of the world turn. So, it's very significant. And also then to look at the conditions of workers within the informal economy and how workers' lives and livelihoods can be improved.
Thank you, Vanessa. I thought when I saw the stats last week, it was horrific. But what you've just said to me has given me goosebumps all over. Paul, I want to direct the question to you, because you have quite a lot of experience from the unions also, but also now going forward within Saita. What does unemployment mean for an organization like Saita, and how does that affect the future of informal traders?
Thank you, Chairperson. Good evening. Thanks for having us here tonight. So it's quite a difficult issue to discuss in a few minutes. Unemployment per se in South Africa is quite a huge challenge. I mean, we just heard last week from Stats SA, and I always say this, as a country, you would want to be number one in the world as the biggest economy or the fastest races or the most medals at the Olympics. Yet South Africa has got the precarious prize of having the biggest or the highest level of unemployment in the world. That was last week. So the problem in South Africa is also, even though you see the amount there, which says 67% or 57%, whatever it is, those are the official figures. There's so many workers that is stopped applying, which is not part of that statistics that you see. There's another 2 or 3 million that is not. They are not job seekers anymore, so they are out of that statistics. Secondly, COVID, as we know it, in March when lockdown came, it really killed the economy in South Africa, and not just South Africa but the world. And we've heard that 2.2 million people in South Africa lost their jobs because of COVID and closure of businesses. And I always say is that 10% of those may, because of putting food on the table, may be living a life of crime to look after themselves. But the other part, more than 1.9 million, has found themselves in the informal economy sector because that is how they feed their family. And so over and above the 3 to 4 million that we had in South Africa, another 1.9 million came to us in 2 or 3 months. And so this is something that as Saita is a huge issue for us. Unemployment, obviously, if you look in hindsight, and if I want to use it tongue-in-cheek, is happy because we build our membership as Saita. But facing the reality is that it's a huge concern. Somebody that works on the street, in the cold, in the morning, late at night, early in the mornings, on weekends, to put food on the table. So the unemployment of the country as such becomes a big burden for the people that have to now start earning and put food on the table. So as Saita and in our membership, that is what we do. We try to unite these people in one unity. as a member, as membership of and members of Saita, this is what we can then do, is to discuss and talk about, opportunities in the informal economy sector, how to open up this informal economy and the system. We always say that government must produce work and then government is not doing enough. Technically, government is never a job finding and job creation company. Government is not. Government must open the doors of employment so that people can work. And I think that's where we need to take government head on, is to open up opportunities. Issues, for instance, is the permit checks that we are talking about, which is quite a big and a hot topic. A lot of people has got permits and they are told by the municipalities to renew and pay for exuberant prices, whilst the president has got government gazette ruling that says no permits needs to be paid and cost has been waived until the end of December 2022. These are the things that government needs to do to open up the economy for the informal sector and for the economy in general. Government cannot be seen as a job creation. They should open up the economy and make sure that people can do work and the economy can grow. Now, I wanted to latch on what Vanessa was saying about people working and, the guy on the corner and there's a lady working, taking the calls. Technically, she's an employee of this backyard mechanic. And if there's 2 million informal traders, we could have 2 million job opportunities for people that work at the traders. Each person will have one person that helps. It's to put Nazis in a bag or to drive the boxes, but that's an employee. So the informal sector technically has the opportunity to create 4 to 5 million jobs immediately. And we need to assist them in doing that, giving them opportunity to have legitimate businesses, make sure that they conform with what, regulations, make sure that the government opens up the sectors, gives them the opportunities to do business, and also assist them in employing workers and employees in the sector that they work in. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. So both you and Vanessa have alluded to the numbers of people. I want to thank the head of the Economic Development Forum in Saita, who has sent this little bit of information through earlier this week. And now we're going to talk money. So if you think you're an informal trader, and I know that there's a lot of us as informal traders who believe that we are just living hand to mouth. But I quickly want to put a spotlight on your hand to mouth, how this affects the economy. So the information that David sent through says, in 2019, the GDP of South Africa was 351 billion rand. Billion rand. Stats SA, who are the same people that put out the unemployment figures, they estimated that the informal sector contribute 5.2% to the GDP. So that 5.2% then becomes 18 billion rand. That is what the informal sector, just based on that 5.2 estimation of Stats SA does. However, the figure isn't entirely correct because we know that the informal sector is more than that. So if we're estimating that it's about 15% and not 5%, that means the amount of money that the informal sector adds to the economy of this country could easily be a minimum of 52 billion rand. So there's a huge difference between 18 billion and 52 billion. So that is really what we are sitting with. And we are saying that more and more people have become unemployed. And I'm going to put it to both my panelists right now and say that the informal sector is really going to be the catalyst for turning the economy in South Africa. Vanessa, what would you respond to that statement?
I would say, Louise, that yes, absolutely. But firstly, we need to create an enabling environment, an enabling policy environment, and inclusion, better inclusion, more transparent inclusion, but also protection. I mean, we've just seen that the green paper on social protection has now been withdrawn. and that green paper was talking to the extension of social protection. So back to the mechanic and the assistant or the family worker who is an employee, who is a worker. Now, sort of common sense, when you talk about 52 billion, and that has been sort of the prerogative or the policy objective mainly in our country is, okay, now how do we tax that? How do we tax that? How much of that is being lost to income revenue to the country because informal traders do not pay taxes, which is a myth, because actually they do. They pay. They are several times taxed. If you think about all the goods that they buy to sell in turn, they pay VAT on that. If you think about the monies that they pay for permits, if you think about losses to goods, if you think about how much they pay in bribes to be able to make a living. So actually, if we were to talk about money, I think the question has to be turned around and asked in turn, for the 52 billion that we are contributing as workers in the informal economy, what are we getting from government in return? What kind of services, what kind of infrastructure, what kind of business support, what kind of regulation, better regulation are we getting? What are we getting for our permit? We're getting a little square to work in. We've been made to run in circles in that little square. We don't have access to decent facilities. Now we're in a health crisis, and we're being told that running water is a necessity during this time. Guess what? This is foreign. Many traders. I remember being in a workshop once with members of Saita and with members of the Waste Pickers Association and having a conversation about the new urban agenda. Another one of these sort of global policy outlines of policy directives of how the urban space should look. And we were having a conversation, and it was strange but understandable that informal traders could not think of the possibility of having access to their own ablution facilities in the public space. So it's about thinking about workplaces. It's about thinking of public space as a workplace. And what are the rights of workers within that public space? It's about thinking of working class homes as productive spaces and considering all the risks that workers who are sustaining themselves, sustaining their families, sustaining the local society on the income generated within those working class homes. What kind of services do they have? What kind of infrastructure do they have? What can be done to improve that, to make them even more viable? So when you say this could be a catalyst to change, yes, I absolutely agree, but you can hear there has to be many changes, including the political will to recognize this contribution and to create the enabling environment, both structurally as well as in terms of policy, to really make this economy thrive.
Thank you, Vanessa. Wow, thank you. You've really put such a lot of emphasis on the critical factors that we often neglect to look at. I want to say thank you. I'm just putting a glance on the comments on the Facebook page, and there's some amazing comments coming through. And there's somebody that said, based on a statement that you earlier made, which was quite interesting, that this person only picked out one of the issues in terms of how people spend, and that was bribing. And he said, please explain. Just in a nutshell, give us the reality of informal traders and bribing, because a lot of us don't know that it exists. But just give us just a sneak preview of what it really means for an informal trader.
I'm not an informal trader myself. I would like to pass this question to Comrade Patrick if he's online.
No, his signal is a bit dodgy.
But I'll venture a response based on my knowledge of working with traders.
Yes, please.
Often traders are being subjected to exploitation by authorities, that they have to pay bribes to the authorities, not for an end to continuous harassment. And we know this. We know this from your members, from traders everywhere, not only in South Africa, globally. We know that how unscrupulous authority figures can be, and we know that how they can abuse their power. You've seen it in evictions. The law says one thing. The law says that you must list what you confiscate, that you must give a receipt for what you confiscate. How many traders can say that happens to them in reality? It's not linked to my point about bribery, but I'm making the point that, workers in the informal economy often have to do a lot to survive.
Yes, that's a lot more.
Yes, and paying bribes to often officials is one form of exploitation that they are subjected to, and it costs them money. They have to pay in money, or they have to pay with their goods.
Yeah. The Saita president, Mrs. Rashida Miller, has commented on the Facebook page saying, also to something that you said earlier, she says, therefore government has to open more viable spaces for trading. But online trading has also become very, very popular. But we know that online trading has become popular, but we also know that we're in a country where all Wi-Fi definitely isn't equal. So Paul, how do I pick up the pieces if I'm unemployed? I need you to inspire somebody tonight. Because there has to be a way forward. We cannot allow our country to die economically when we are sitting with a trump card.
Thank you, Louise. I think, let me start by saying this. If you look in the days, and I'm not going to talk politics here, but look at the days of Stalin and Lenin. Why was Russia the strongest economic country in the world at the time? They don't have gold and stuff that we have in South Africa and beautiful land and areas. It's snow and cold in Russia. But why were they strong? Because they allowed the people of the country to work the country. The so-called informal economy worked Russia at the time. Forget about, communism and the leadership and what it did. It became strong because everybody in the country was allowed to work and do its bit in what it is good for. So it farmed, it had informal sector, it sold, and Russia grew like that. And I think what you are saying tonight is a very good thing. With Comrade Vanessa opened the second stint by saying policies needs to change so that the country can be viable economically. So that's the one thing. But this is not something that me and you and the people listening to us can do. This is nice and talk and rhetoric, and we can debate for days. Tonight we need to speak to those people, that gentleman, that lady sitting there, sitting and waiting and watching for some kind of a hope. And the hope is in with Saita. And our Saita role is to unify the informal sector. The only way to do that is to have unity in numbers. Now, it's easy for us to sit tonight here. There's 3 panelists and 2 panelists and a presenter. And we have this on Facebook and people listen and say, oh, it's just another talk shop. But as soon as we have people behind us, I can go to the president and say, Mr. President, I'm speaking on behalf of 4 million Martin people. Join Saita tonight. Be part this massive movement so that we can change the economy as it is. We have the ability, we have it in our hand. I always say to the unionists, you play with power. We have power in hand. We should not play with power. We have that. We have the ability to go to government. We are represented at NEDLAC. And NEDLAC is the second highest body, just under Parliament, to change and look at labor legislation. And yet we are presented there, but we don't have mandates to give to government. If imagine we had 4 million people that join Saita as a unity and say, we want this kind of law, we don't want permits, or permits can't be more than 20 rand a year. Whatever, I'm making a very stupid example. But there's 4 million people saying that. Government has nothing but to solutions are not one in the boardrooms, it is one on the streets. And we are on the streets. And I'm not saying we're busy with the revolution, but there needs to be a change. This is our revolution. The revolution in our heart. Yeah, I see I was gone there. So the revolution is in our heart. To change the economy as we know it, to put the informal and the formal economy forward, because we are the backbone of this country's economy. You said it's astronomical. It's even bigger than some smaller countries' GDP. It's the kind of money that only the informal economy brings in. So we are not small fry. We are not just third class by the roadside economy. We actually keep the country going. That lady that comes from work that wants to quickly buy 3 apples for the children at home, or to those ones that quickly don't have money to buy 2 or 3 loose cigarettes, as they say. Those are the kind of things that keeps the economy going. And I'm saying, as Saita, we are standing in front of the informal trader. We are ready for this revolution, and we are ready to fight it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Some militant words there in response to Vanessa's statement. And Vanessa, thank you for raising it again and for putting it so eloquently. Just how affected the informal trader, the informal sector is at large, because they are being marginalized by really policies and legislation, and that if we don't have insight into those policies as a sector, that we're going to continuously be marginalized. Yolanda Alexander posted a comment saying bylaws should be for the people, by the people. So I mean, that is such a strong statement. Kevin says towns must encourage informal trading by creating space that have PowerPoints and water. And Kevin, that goes exactly back to what Vanessa said earlier about what are the trading conditions where we put all these billions into the economy, and yet we have the most shocking trading conditions. Vanessa, I just actually wanted to add to that. I mean, moms with babies, we're talking about ablution facilities and all of those, but moms with babies, where do those kids go? We're talking about ECDs and early childhood development being so important to life skills and growing up further on, and what kids are allowed to do and how far their minds will go. And we don't have any support for our moms even there. Isn't it so? So yeah, I mean, Paul, you've made the call, and it comes back again to all of us having to stand together. Vanessa has made the point earlier that 2 billion people globally. So what we're experiencing in South Africa is not a unique phenomenon, but we can change it. Vanessa, in concluding, I need you to give us some hope. I need you to speak to the informal trader that's had a hard time so far. I need you to also speak to the person who's lost their job that now needs to enter this market. What is the one message that you'd like to pass on to them?
I think the key message, Louise, and it links to what Comrade Paul has already said, that this is about a movement. It's about giving voice. It's about being proud I think it starts with being proud of what we do. If you're in the informal economy, I like what the Latin Americans say. They have a very nice way of putting it. They say that the worker is never informal. It's the economy that's informal. And we don't create those conditions. Those conditions are created by the capitalist system. We find ourselves in that position. We make ends meet. We find ways to survive in that. We should be respected. We should be given dignity. You know, I don't know if the time allows, but very quickly, if you think about when the recent looting and riots that we had in the country, how many times have informal traders had their goods completely taken away, had their stalls completely ransacked during protest action? And how often did government stand up and say those people's goods have to be replaced? They have to be supported. Look at the support that's going to the private sector right now to rebuild. Our taxpayers' money is going towards that. My first inclination on the first day of the riot was to reach out to Comrade Lulama Mali, who trades in the city center of Johannesburg, who's a member of the Johannesburg Informal Traders Platform, to find out if she's okay, to find out if she's gone. And you know what her words were to me? When we got wind that this is going to happen, we organize and mobilize around ourselves that we wouldn't go into trade, because we know when there's such high level protest in the inner city, we are often the first targets. Our stalls get completely damaged so they have no insurance, they have no recourse, they have nothing to fall back on. And look at the response that we've had in this country. You know, why is the informal trader not afforded the same support? So my closing comment is, as informal traders, as workers in the informal economy, we need to stand up and fight for the recognition of our work and for the dignity and respect that we deserve as active citizens who make this country's wheels turn. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Paul, final words from you.
Thank you. I wanted to say that I heard what you said about those 2 remarks on Facebook. And that's exactly what we want to say. That's the revolution on the street that we are referring to. Open up markets, make it easier for people to trade, make it safe to trade. But I want to add something quickly before we go off. Is I want people to watch this space. I'm not going to divulge because we're in the planning stage of this, but the people should watch out for in the next 2 weeks. We come with the news. There's going to be a day of national action coming in South Africa by Saita for the informal sector and the unemployed. It's going to be huge. We are going to take government to task. We're in the planning and finalizing of how it will work, and you know, the approval from the leadership and so on. But the National Day of Action is coming, where we say no more. We say no more to government treating us as second-hand and third-class citizens and as a byproduct of business. We will never be a byproduct of business anymore. We are going to take our stance, our rightful stance, in the middle of the economy of South Africa. Our people will be treated with respect, and we will not be allowed the marginalization of women and children the way that we are seeing currently. So watch the space, watch Straight Talk in the next 2 weeks, and listen and see how we are going to change the country as we know it and the informal economy as we know it. Thank you.
To our panelists, Vanessa Pillay and Paul Bester, thank you so much. I'm terribly sorry that Comrade Patrick had signal issues, so we couldn't get his input specifically from the KwaZulu-Natal area. My final words are going back to the comments on Facebook, where Angela de Waal has asked, are there big corporates that enable the formal trade and supporting the informal trader? Some of them are, not enough. But I want to conclude with what Nikki Swartz has said, and she says, there are many more of us than big corporates. Let that be the flame that keeps your fire going. Until next Tuesday night, from me and the team here at Saita Straight Talk, we're looking forward to another incredible session next week, Tuesday. Be sure to join us. Make sure that you follow us on Facebook, Saita Media, or the official South African Informal Traders Alliance page on Twitter and on Facebook. Till next time, from me, Louise, stay warm, stay safe. Goodbye.